The Detroit Pistons got eliminated by the Orlando Magic in the in-season tournament on Friday, but they bounced back with a win over the Miami Heat. Though it got really stressful at the end of the game. We'll break down these games and everything else over the weekend. Today's episode, Locked On Pistons Podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Khahil. I've been covering the Detroit Pistons for the last 4 years, been a credential media member now going into year 3 for the Detroit Pistons. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started today. Later on, I want to talk about the backup point guard dilemma. I think the Pistons are, if they're not already facing it, I think they will face in the future pretty soon here. And then also, is Ausar Thompson fading after a good start to the season? We'll talk about how he's played as of late. But let's start off with how the Pistons played over the weekend. Start off with a loss to the Orlando Magic. Friday night, the Orlando Magic did not have Paolo Banchero. Did not matter. They took down the Pistons 112-109. The Pistons were playing pretty well for the first half of this game, but for back-to-back games, something we'll get into later on in the podcast, the second quarter really doomed them. Their bench really let them down in this game against the Orlando Magic. It was pretty bad. I tweeted out this picture of Cade Cunningham's on-off in that game just because of how insane it looked. Just looking at the number, the Pistons were, if I could find it, where'd it go? Right here. The Pistons were a minus 92.2 in the minutes Cade was off the floor. Just 8 minutes. Cade played 39 minutes in this game. They were a plus 16. In the 8 minutes he was off, they were a minus 92.2. They got absolutely obliterated in the non-Cade minutes and ended up dooming them against the Orlando Magic. And they really needed that win. If they would have won that game, they would have stayed in the in-season tournament and would have moved on to the next round. But the Orlando Magic eliminated them in this game. A tough loss to have. And coming off losing to the Boston Celtics, having that type of loss happen back-to-back, it sent a lot of people into, okay, what's going on? Is there something to be concerned about? You know, are they backtracking? Like, what's happening? Then you move into this game. The following day, they had a back end of a back-to-back against the Miami Heat, who were 13-6 heading into this game. And Miami's actually been a pretty good team this year. This has not been just an easy team. This has been a really good team. And the Pistons were able to get the win here against the Miami Heat. But the way this game went, you also kind of walk away saying, like, man, what's going on? The Pistons were in complete control the entirety of this game. The first 44 minutes of this game, they completely dominated. They were up by 22 early in the fourth quarter. They were up by double digits with like 4 minutes left in this game. They were in complete control of this game until around the 4-minute mark. I think every single person that stepped onto the floor was playing a good game. I think it looked much more like the Pistons we had seen throughout the year, where everyone who hits the floor contributes in some type of way. They control the game with their defense, and they get out and run. It was a very high-tempo game against the Miami Heat. The Pistons were thriving in it. And then all of a sudden, in the final 4 minutes, somehow, some way, the Miami Heat cut this to a one-possession game and have a chance to take the lead. And the Pistons ended up pulling this out 138-135, but got way, way too close for no reason. Really, the Pistons could have lost this game. They were this close from losing this game after controlling it for 44 minutes, just dominating the game, literally. Not just, up by 5 throughout the whole game. No, they were up by double digits, thoroughly dominating the Heat throughout the game, and then ended up fumbling at the end, almost giving this game away. So what's happening? What's happening over the last 3 games? Because despite getting the win against Miami, there were some more concerns that came up in this game. And then obviously they lost that game to Boston. They lost the game to Orlando. What's going on? So, number one, something that has to be corrected here that really has been hurting the Pistons over the last few games. And we talked about this being a reason why they were playing so well and why this particular player was having such an insane season. And that is Cade Cunningham's turnovers. Cade was doing a great job the entire really of the win streak, not turning the ball over a ton. He wasn't turning the ball over 6, 5, 4+ times all the time. He was taking much better care of the ball, especially later on in the game, taking much better care of the ball. But over the last 2 games, he's had 8 turnovers in both games. That's absolutely ridiculous, absolutely impossible. Can't do that. Unacceptable. And then really, in the fourth quarter of this game against the Miami Heat as well, he came in and had 3 turnovers. In the final, 3 minutes of the game, he kept turning his back to the defense. They would send a double while he's turned around and then take it away from him. He got his pocket picked by, I believe, Davion Mitchell on one possession as well. So the turnovers are really killing the Pistons. That's the main thing that you're seeing in these last 2 games, and really last 3 games that have really had you thinking, okay, what's going on? Why are they dropping games like this? They're turnovers. Turnovers are getting out of pocket. Cade leads it, but Ausar had 2 turnovers in this fourth quarter. He had 1 in the short roll. We'll talk about Ausar later, but he had 1. They ran a pick and roll with Cade against the Heat. He slips. Cade gives it to him on the short roll. It looks like Ausar's going to be able to go in and raise up for either a foul or at least a finish at the rim. And as he's going up, he just loses the ball. It goes out of bounds. So Ausar had 2 turnovers. Cade had 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter of this game. And that really is what almost lost the Pistons the game. For totality of the game against the Miami Heat, you had Cade with 8. You had Tobias with 3. You had Paul Reed with 2. You had Ausar with 3. Isaiah Stewart, Jaden Ivey, Ron Holland, and Duncan Robinson all had 1. They had way too many turnovers in this game against the Miami Heat. And then you go and look at the game against Orlando as well. They had way too many turnovers from people. Again, Cade had a lot of turnovers, but you don't want multi-turnovers from anyone not named Cade, really. When you have that many turnovers from Cade, he's high usage. Everyone else isn't that high of usage. You don't want to see high turnover numbers. And in the game against Orlando, Jalen Duren had 5 turnovers. Ausar Thompson had 3. Isaiah Stewart had 3. Javonte Green had 1. Jaden Ivey had 3. Ron Holland had 1. So turnovers are really killing the Pistons the last few games. We talked about during the win streak, they were doing a much better job of winning the possession battle, not turning the ball over, getting offensive rebounds, getting second chance points, forcing turnovers. That's what was leading them to winning these games during the win streak, and now you're seeing them really fumble the ball a ton throughout the games, especially over the last 3 or so games. Do I think some of that has to do with guys coming back, guys getting accustomed, lineups getting accustomed to each other? Sure, some of it does come with that, especially like the Jaden Ivey one against Orlando. He's only playing 10 minutes. He's not going to rust off. A lot of that can be attributed to that as well. But is some of it being attributed to defenses are changing the way they're covering some guys? I think, against Orlando, you saw this with Jalen Duren, and even the game against Boston as well. We talked about it after the Boston loss. Again, Orlando, every time Jalen Duren put the ball on the ground, they're sending somebody else after him. They're reaching down, knocking the ball loose. And you're seeing that Jalen Duren is not, he needs to adjust, and I'm sure he will, because he's had such a great year. But now defenses are adjusting to how they're guarding him. Anytime he puts the ball on the ground, they're reaching at the ball. They're playing him for the score, seeing if he's going to make the right read as a passer. And he's not doing that over the last few games. We know that he's a good passer. We know he's capable of making passes. So I'm sure that the coaching staff will go over this film with him, and we'll start to see him make some better decisions as the season progresses. But the defense have adjusted to him, and especially against the Magic and the Celtics, that really made the Pistons pay. And then their best player is just turning the ball over way too much. That's one of the main reasons why they lost to Orlando. Was the main reason why they almost lost this game to the Miami Heat. And if the Pistons are going to continue to play as well as they've played throughout the start of this year and continue this 16-4 record and this first seed and continue to be in that situation, they need to get back to not turn the ball over, get back to their defensive roots, and execute within the half court. That's one of the other reasons why their half-court offense was so good. They were doing such a good job of not turning the ball over. Now they're just giving easy buckets up to the team, to the opposing team recently. So they clean the turnovers up. I think they'll be fine. Definitely not the greatest last 5 days. Really, the last week hasn't been great for Detroit sports. Lions, the Pistons, it is what it is. But correct the turnovers, cut those down, and I think the team will be fine. The Pistons' next game, when is their next game? Who do they play next? They play tomorrow, I believe. Their next game is at Atlanta on the 1st, yeah. So Atlanta's another good team, granted, and a really good defensive team as well. Take care of the ball. They should be fine. Coming up, though, something that could solve, I think, some of the turnover issues is figuring out what's going on with your backup point guard position. This is now back-to-back years we are having this conversation, and I feel like it's pretty clear what the Pistons need here. The problem is it's hard. I understand why it's going to be hard for the team to make this decision, even though I believe it's the right decision. We'll talk about what I mean coming up. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports, bowl games, big basketball matchups, and playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. The early payout feature is a great bonus. When your lineup starts strong, you may get the option to cash out early. And the new stacks feature lets you choose the same player up to 3 times in one lineup, like more on a QB's passing yards, touchdowns, and rushing yards. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDINNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDINNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free to available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. The Pistons are running into, or have, I should say, an issue that they have to solve, and I think a lot of us feel like we know the answer to the question, but it's going to be hard for JB Bickerstaff and the Pistons to justify doing it, I think. The backup point guard situation is back-to-back years now a problem for the Detroit Pistons. I want to rewind to the Orlando game. Jaden Ivey did not play well at all in that game. He had 3 turnovers in this game. Now, Jaden Ivey is knocking the rust off. You're not really holding that much against him, but he had a really tough game against Orlando. And so far, in his 4 or 5 games back, you are seeing him show spurts of playing really well, especially in this game against Miami. I thought he had a really good game against Miami in his role. And again, like we talked about all offseason, like I've done multiple breakdowns over, and like I wrote over on the Substack in the offseason, and like I've said now for over a year plus, he has looked better when he is playing off ball. That's when he's looked at his best. When the Pistons have put him on ball and asked him to create offense for them, it has not went well. He's turning the ball over. So a lot of the same things we've seen from him throughout his career are popping up. When he's playing off ball, though, he's allowed to attack closeouts. He's allowed to attack in transition. He's allowed to catch and shoot threes. When he's allowed to do that, he's looked good. In this Miami Heat game, I thought it was a prime example, and we'll get into why it was a great example, but he hit a catch-and-shoot 3. He had a nice transition bucket. He had a nice attacking a closeout, attacking a gap, and getting to the basket. That's where Jaden Ivey looks his best, and he's allowed to utilize his athleticism against the defense, against a retreating defense. The problem is, against Orlando, the Pistons put the ball in his hands quite a bit to create, and he turned the ball over a ton. The other problem is that he shared a lot of his minutes with Caris LeVert. And Caris is, it's different. It's hard for me to, Caris I feel like has played overall really well. I think his defense has been really good for the Pistons, really good. Very much needed from Caris, how well he's been on defense. His length, his size, activity on the defensive end. And in quite a few games, his big-time shot making has really helped the Pistons a ton. It's really helped them. Won them a few games, I think. So overall, I think Caris is playing well. However, I've said since the offseason that I don't really look at Caris as a point guard. He is going out there and he's searching for his own bucket. And then when he gets walled off on his bucket, then he looks for, an outlet pass. He'll look for a dump off. He's not necessarily, driving in the offense, into sets and stuff. He's more so you bring Caris in because he's going to provide you offense. And again, like I've said, he's done, it's not like Caris has played awful. Over the last 10 games, Caris is averaging 11 points a game on 63 true shooting. It's not like he's not doing that well. He is. The problem is I don't think Caris and Jaden Ivey are a good fit because neither of them are really good point guards, and neither of them are guys you really want relying on creating advantages for others and get others involved, especially against aggressive defenses like you saw against Orlando. And I think that really popped off the screen when you watched them in that game. The difference in the game that you saw, like, for example, I know this is a very small sample size. This is all small sample sizes we're talking about. So I'm trying not to read into it too much. But in just the 42 minutes we've seen Jaden Ivey and Caris share the floor together, they have a minus 24.7 net rating. Like, they're just getting blitzed in their minutes. I don't think they fit very well together. I think Jaden Ivey needs to be playing with a guy who is a point guard. And then in this game against Miami, Caris missed this game. And JB, I'm going to credit him with this adjustment, even though it's very likely that it's not really an adjustment. It was more so just what he had to do because Caris was out. But I'm going to give him credit for the adjustment and assume it is for now. That Jaden Ivey, when he was subbed into the game, I believe he subbed in for Ausar Thompson at the 3-minute mark. He subs in for Ausar Thompson, and then he plays the rest of his first quarter minutes with Cade. And then in the second quarter, he plays the rest of his first stretch of the first half with Dennis. Dennis comes in for Cade. So now Ivey, his entirety of his first half minutes were shared with either Cade or Dennis. And the Pistons dominated. The Pistons played really well because Ivey looked a lot better because he was playing with a point guard throughout the entirety of his minutes. Playing with Cade. Cade creates advantages, hits it to Ivey if a guy is helping down, playing hard to the nail. Now all of a sudden he's attacking a gap. Now all of a sudden he's catching and shooting three. Dennis Jenkins, he's getting the team into offense. He's driving and kicking. I think it fits better what you want Ivey to do within your half-court offense. And then obviously in the second half, until that 4-minute mark, it looked just as good as well. Dennis, I thought, played really well. Ivey didn't play any of his minutes without Cade or Dennis. And again, it played out really well. The problem is that Caris was out this game. That's the only reason why you really saw this. So moving forward, do you find a way to play Dennis and play Ivey all of his minutes with either Cade or Dennis on the floor? Problem is that I just don't think that's possible. I don't think it's possible for them to do that because they're going to play Caris. And the reason why this is a tough conversation to have, and I think the Pistons are going to be in a tough position with it, is because I don't think Caris has been bad. Like, I don't think he's been bad for them. But I think it's I think it's clear, and I know it's a small sample size, but it kind of confirms what I was thinking beforehand, so that's why I'm talking pretty confidently about it. Is that I just don't think Caris and Ivey are going to fit well together, and I think Ivey and Dennis, with how well Dennis has played, like, there was a legitimate argument to be made that Dennis, when he was playing a lot, when he was playing 20-plus minutes, he played better than Caris. Now, again, that's not to say Caris was bad, but you could very easily make the argument that Dennis was better than Caris. Now, you could say both of them are good, but you can make the argument that Dennis was straight up better than Caris during that stretch, and that speaks to how great Dennis was. And with the Pistons trying to go to this 10, 11-man deep rotation, I've spoke about it over and over how much I hate it. I see people starting to jump on that bandwagon. It's not good. You're not even really giving guys minutes. You're just throwing away minutes in the first half. You're not allowing Ausar to play 30-plus minutes because of it. You got Ron Holland playing 13, 12 minutes because of it. Guys aren't – it's not like you're resting Cade. Cade's still playing. I hate it. I don't like it. But I've said this on the podcast, I believe last week, that if you are going to go deep into the rotation, let's say you go 10 deep, and you're trying to – because you want to make sure someone plays, it should be Dennis. Dennis should be the one you're going out of your way to find a way to play him. That's like, he's played so well, and the Pistons have looked good in his minutes that you should be finding a way. If the JB Bickerstaff says to me, I'm going deep with the rotation because we have to find a way to play Dennis, he's just too good. I get that. Then you know what? Figure it out. I understand. We'll deal with it. Going deep into your rotation so you can play Javonte Green 9 minutes, and now you're not playing Ausar 30-plus minutes. You're not playing Ron Holland more than 15 minutes. And going 12 deep and messing up some of the rhythm just so you can get Javonte Green minutes. It's like, okay, look, Javonte's a good end-of-bench guy. Great, but he's not someone you have to make a deep rotation for and ruin the – like, that doesn't make sense. I kind of went off track a little bit with that. My point is, you want to find a way to play Dennis. But when Caris is healthy, how are you going to do so? You're trying to play Cade, Duncan, who's playing a lot of his minutes at the 2. I know you maybe don't think of Duncan as a 2, but the majority of his minutes are coming at the 2. You got Cade, Duncan, Ivey, Caris, and Dennis all trying to take up all the minutes at the guard positions. You got Cade taking up around like 38 to 39 of the minutes of really the point guard minutes. And then he shares a lot of his minutes sometimes with Dennis, whoever you want to call the point guard during those lines, whatever. But they share, like at the end of the game against the Miami Heat, they brought Dennis in and played him with Cade. Cade likes playing with another guard too. So like, you want to find those minutes. You have 5 guys that you're trying to make minutes for in 2 positions. How are you going to do it? I don't know how. Jaden Ivey obviously is a priority. You have to continue to play him. You have to get answers on him. You have to allow him to knock his rust off. He obviously is safe. He has to play. Cade obviously is safe. He has to play. Duncan, obviously, he's safe. He has to play. I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to continue to see them try to play Caris and Ivey together because it's been small sample size, which, fair. But I just think that Dennis should be getting minutes. And you gave Caris a lot of money, and he hasn't necessarily played bad. But, like, I think Dennis might be better. So, I mean, we'll see. I don't really have an answer. Like, I don't really have a great answer for how the Pistons are going to organize this. I really don't. In this game against Miami, they went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 deep, with Javonte playing 8 minutes. And this is with Ivey playing 14 minutes. Like, again, we're still on Ivey with the minutes restriction. We're not even at the point where Ivey's going to be playing 20-plus minutes yet, which is going to make it even harder for everyone to get minutes. Dennis played 14 minutes. I don't know, man. It's going to be tough. All I know is that Ivey needs to share his minutes with the point guard. He's not going to look as good when he's being asked to create. He's just not. He's going to look fine. He's going to look good when he's playing with someone else who can handle the ball and run the offense. So play a lot of his minutes with Cade. I like the fact that they had Ausar come out for Ivey, and then the guard come in for Cade, and stagger a little bit of Ausar, Ivey, and Cade. I like that. That makes sense, rather than what they did a few games ago, where for the first 3 or 4 games, when it was just Ausar coming out early for, I think it was Isaiah Stewart was the first sub in for Ausar, and then Ausar would come back in the 5-minute mark of the second, and Ivey's playing a lot of his minutes with Caris throughout that middle stretch. Don't like that as much, but I think JB has to find a way to play Dennis and Ivey together. And maybe you can run Dennis, Ivey, and Caris. You cut Javonte Greaves minutes completely, and you run Dennis, Ivey, and Caris together, and you run that with Ron at the 4 and Stu at the 5, as a bench line. Maybe you do something like that, but then I understand why maybe he feels like that's too small of a lineup. I don't know. We'll see what happens. All I know is that, yet again, back-to-back years, you have a dilemma about who's your backup point guard, who should be your backup point guard, or what makes sense. This is now back-to-back years you're having this question. We'll see how they answer it moving forward. But coming up, is Ausar Thompson fading after having a good start to the year? Is he fading? We'll talk about it coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. With FanDuel, the game moves fast, so can you with FanDuel. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Ausar Thompson, one of my favorite players on the Pistons. Obviously, everyone knows this. I'm a huge Ausar fan. Sang his praises all offseason. And to start this year, I was singing his praises again because I thought that he was taking a leap. I thought he was taking a leap this year. I thought we were seeing this massively improved play from him to start the year. And I thought he would be a big reason why the Pistons take another jump this year. Now, obviously, Jalen Duren ended up being the person who took a big leap for the first 19, 18 games of the season and was a bigger reason. how good he was within the half-court offense and how good he was at creating his own offense. But Ausar, during that stretch, was also taking a step. The first 10 games of the season, he was averaging 14 points a game, 6.5 rebounds a game, 3.4 assists, while shooting 48%, or not 48%, 50.4% from the field, averaging 1.8 steals. They were 4.4 points better with him on the floor. He was playing really well. He was much more aggressive offensively. These are the amount of shot attempts he was taking in the first 10 games of the year. 16 shots, 14, 12, 14, 10. Very aggressive. Looked like a better offensive player, a better driver of the basketball. His handle looked better. They were relying on him to run a lot of the backup point guard stuff we just talked about in the last segment. A lot of it was Ausar, and he looked really good. The team looked really good, and he looked like he was taking another step within the first 10 games of the season. Then he got hurt. He missed a few games with his ankle injury. And now he's back, obviously, but he hasn't looked the same since coming back. It's been 6 games now. The first 2 games, he was on a minutes restriction. So, I mean, fair, I guess, with why his numbers are down. He was on a minutes restriction, so fair enough, I guess. But over the last 6 games, since coming back from this ankle injury, he has not put up the same type of production that he did the first 10 games of this season. Over the last 6 games, he goes from 14 points to 8.5 points. He goes from 6.5 rebounds to 5 rebounds. He goes from 3.5 assists to 2 assists. He goes from 1.7 steals to 1.2 steals. And the Pistons are just about even with him on the floor. Now, I will say this, that the on-off number is heavily influenced by the fact that the starters got absolutely destroyed in the fourth quarter of this Miami game. Like, entering the fourth quarter, all of the starters were double digits in on-off, or they're plus-minus against Miami. And then in the fourth quarter, they all, like, Tobias went from being a massive positive to a minus 13. Cade went from being a massive positive to a minus 6. Ausar went from a massive positive to a minus 22 in the fourth quarter. Like, the fourth quarter really tanked and was made that number really noisy. But even if you ignore that number, because of the larger sample size of them obviously being better with Ausar, that you can ignore that one. But point is, Ausar hasn't put up the same type of production as he has over the last 6 games. Should people be concerned about Ausar? I remember we had this conversation for like a week and a half stretch. I believe in like March last year, we had a podcast about this. People were concerned. He came back from injury in like a week and a half. He didn't play well. People were concerned, and then he started playing really well again. I think that's probably what's going to happen here. He's coming back from injury. I think he's getting back to 100%. He's dealt with foul trouble in a few of these games, which has been a problem as well. So I think that's all contributing to it. I think that's one. So to answer the question, no, I don't think you should be worried about Ausar. He's still fantastic defensively. Like, he's going to be a positive impact on the team no matter what. But offensively, he just has not looked as good. So I think, one, a lot of that has to do with the injury, him coming back and getting back to 100%. That's one. 2, he was on a minutes restriction early on when he came back. So that's the second thing. But I think maybe the most important thing here is, third, is that a lot of people are coming back. And I had a few of you guys mention this to me in the comments and on Twitter, and I think it was a really good takeaway, is that Ausar came back right when everyone got back. You got Ivey coming back. You got Tobias coming back. You got them trying to figure out how to play Dennis and Javonte Green. They got them trying to figure out how to play 12-man rotations. You got them trying to figure out how to work everybody into an offense. So now, for the first 10 games when Ausar was playing, he was really the secondary creator. He was the secondary ball handler for the Pistons, and he was doing well with it. The Pistons were winning. The Pistons were playing really well, and he looked like he was taking a step as a passer. He wasn't turning the ball over. He wasn't dealing with handle issues. He was getting to the basket more than ever. We talked about how much he was drawing free throws. Despite him not shooting great on free throws, we talked about how he was shooting much better on free throws, or not shooting much better, but getting more free throws, I should say, because of his aggression. And then when he came back, he's kind of been bumped down like 5 spots on offense. They got Cade handling the ball a lot. Obviously, you got Duren, who had really secured himself as like the secondary creator, offensively scorer for the Pistons, and they're trying to go to him a ton. Now you got Ivey coming back. They're trying to work back in. You got Dennis and Caris both coming in. Dennis played really well with the ball in his hands, so has Caris at times. And now they're both trying to do their thing. You don't even know which one's going to play. So I think one of the biggest reasons why you've seen the dip in offensive production, and I mentioned this like 3 or 4 podcasts ago, Ausar's like energy, like he's been full court pressing on defense almost every possession, and obviously Ausar's already an elite defense. We know how great he is defensively, but especially over the last few games, like since coming back, it feels like he's channeling a lot more of his energy to just full court pressing, just being like this menace and nuisance to opposing offenses. And then on offense, he's kind of just standing in the corner. And I wonder if I wonder if he's come into these games understanding and being told that, hey, we got these other guys that we're going to give the ball to now. You're kind of going to slide down the pecking order when it comes to creation. We really would like you to kind of channel some of that, and just make sure you're channeling that energy into defense. That's what I'm saying on the tape over the last few games. And I think that's what's really happening here. I think he's adjusting to going from the secondary creator and being trusted to run the offense, being the one running the pick and rolls, being the one setting up the offense and getting everyone, relax and set up in the half court. He's went from that to being the guy that's back to being in the corner because they're working back in multiple ball handlers and multiple guys that want the ball in their hands. And now he's, like I said, he's been bumped down. So I think that's the biggest problem, or not problem. That's not the right word. That's the biggest reason for why you're seeing like the dip in offensive production, because he's just not being utilized as much. I personally think that's a mistake. I think with how good he looked the first 10 games with the ball in his hands, and how good the team looked with him operating and being the secondary ball handler, I think that's a mistake. I think he did good enough during that stretch the way you want to make that a priority that you're doing with him. I want to get the exact numbers up actually. Yeah, his usage went way up in the first 10 games and still was only averaging 1.4 turnovers a game. He had over a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Like, he wasn't turning the ball over despite the increased usage. Like, all the signs were pointing to big improvements and excelling in that role. Obviously, the Pistons were winning. So I understand that they're working guys back in, and I understand that it's going to take a minute to really get everyone situation what you want from them offensively to really get completely down packed while everyone's on minutes restrictions and all. Like, I get it. But eventually, I think they should carve out what we were told from JB before the year, what we were told from them at the beginning of the year, which is we want the ball in his hands because he makes good things happen. And he was doing that the first 10 games of the year. I think they need to find a way eventually to still make sure that's a part of their offense. Now, that's not the only thing. Like, we mentioned all kinds of other reasons. Ausar, I don't think, has been as sharp over the last 6 games. He's had a really good game against Indiana, 6 of 9 shooting, and really good defense. I thought he played really well against Miami until the final 4 minutes where he turned the ball over twice. That wasn't great. He's had spots, but he just hasn't looked as sharp, so he himself needs to play better. He hasn't been finishing as many of his layups at the rim as well, like especially against Boston. He had a few really bad misses at the rim. So, I don't think he's been as sharp since coming back from injury, so I'm sure he's working himself back into peak shape. Like, he's only played above 30 minutes once, and that was only 31 seconds before that. I mean, he was playing 33, 33, 31, 36, 33 minutes. So, I'm sure they probably still have him capped at a minute restriction while also trying to figure out everyone else's rotation. But I think a lot of things are contributing to why Ausar's numbers aren't popping off as much. I'm not concerned about it. I think, like we've went through, there's a lot of factors into why this is happening. I think that give it another week of them trying to figure out, a week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever, of them trying to get everyone back in, and I think you'll get a better idea of how they're utilizing them, and they'll have a better idea of how to utilize them. But I wouldn't be concerned about Ausar. I think they'll figure it out. The one thing I will say that I said this like a few podcasts ago that I've been watching for, I'll continue to watch for. The first 10 games, Ausar only had 2 games where 3 games where he didn't have over 10 shots attempted. Multiple times he tied his career high in attempts. 5 times he went over 14 shot attempts. Over the last 6 games since coming back, he hasn't hit 10 shot attempts yet, which I am going to continue to watch to see if it's about aggression. Is he not being as aggressive as a driver, or is he just not giving as many opportunities? I think it's a bit of both. But again, I thought that was a major reason why they were playing so well to start the season, and I think they need to go back to that a little bit as they figure out what everyone's role is. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil how you guys are feeling about Ausar's stretch over the last few games, and do you think it has a lot to do with the fact so many guys are coming back? He's kind of being bumped down the pecking order here when it comes to offensive usage. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there, and peace out, everybody.